Hey, what's up, YouTube? So I decided to do a video today, unlike something that would be talked about in the year 2016, and that is an analog phone. So in one of my other YouTube videos, I did a video on the Linksys ATA, and I was able to successfully unlock it to use it with a universal SIP provider. So this is the phone that I've been using for quite some time. And as you can see, it has some wear on it. It has been used for many, many years. This went down on me Friday, and I tried to fix the handset. I don't have any of these types of devices laying around anymore since post, I don't know, 10 years ago. So I was just using one of these, and although I do like the convenience of cordless, there's nothing worse than a phone dying on you when you're in the middle of an important business call. So I went today and picked up this two-line business class older analog telephone. And although I could go and buy one of those shiny new IP-based phones, this one is nothing more than a standard analog telephone with caller ID and two fancy telephone line buttons on it. So if you look at the back of this old phone that I'm replacing it with, you'll notice even though it has two lines, it only has one RJ11 jack on the back. And this phone, as you can see coming up the front, there is two RJ11s. So this is more of a easier setup. The problem is, and if you look at my ATA, I have two phone lines coming out of it. So one would think in theory that I could run one line, two line, one line, two line, and everything would be okay. The trouble is I have a two-line promotion on hold module down here, and although it doesn't seem like much, I've actually had callers. What the box does is allows me to put the caller on hold, and then they get whatever signal I throw into this RCA. So if you have it in your front room and you have it hooked to your TV, then your TV sound will go through it or whatever. So I have it looped back through my Sirius subscription here, and I usually put it on like the pop channel or something like that. So it's music people are hip to, but it's kind of censored so there's not a bunch of cursing going on a hold. Because that would be bad. But the problem with going from this older phone in that box to the newer model is, again, it goes from both lines are in the RJ11 jack. So what I did, and I have not taped this yet. I know some of you might be looking and saying, oh my God, you got this thing running and it's not taped. First of all, phone signal is maybe a few volts, if that. If you don't believe me, I'll stick my tongue on it and show you. It's nothing more than a 9-volt battery. Now, if somebody calls while I'm doing that, then that's a whole other story. So kids, don't try that at home. But for simplicity, before you guys go, oh, it's dangerous, they're not taped, it's not a lot of voltage. So, but anyways, so if you come over here and look, we have two lines coming out. And the thing bad about working, taping or soldering or anything on these type of wires is a lot of the new lines like this, they have this weird, like, I forget what it's called, oxidized wire, where when you cut it, you can't just twist it together. It's got this like weird coating on it, and you can solder it, but it's pain. So luckily, I'm working with a bunch of old analog wires that I could cut and physically tape and get working. So what they've done, a lot of these older devices, most of you should be familiar that the red and the green are the only two wires that really need to be connected to make an analog phone or a DSL modem work. But on these older devices, like this has two lines in it. That phone I just showed you has two lines in it, but there's only a line and a phone jack. So whereas this line, it says it has two lines, you can see that the back has two jacks, one for each line. That makes sense. So in order to interface this box, I had to take two lines, go into one jack in, one jack out, and go back to two lines. So basically showing you how I did it. So basically green goes on green, that's line 1, and then you take your line 2 coming out of your ATA or your landline, and you run that to your yellow and your black. So basically you're taking these two lines and running them through this one cable and plugging it into the line. So basically on this, The middle two pins are your standard line 1, and then the outer two that are usually never used is your line 2. So we can feed that there into there, and then it's going to come out the same way. So once we get it out, and then we have to do the same thing again on the new phone coming in. So yeah, it'll look nicer once I solder these and use some heat shrink tubing in there. So let's get back to the meat and potatoes. Before I get any further on letting you know how much all this costs, this is the most expensive piece just because analog phones are not in. This I got for free. The wires I had laying around. The SIP provider I have is very, very cheap. So basically, I'm going to show you. My hold setup is set up so nice that sometimes when I get people back, they're like, "Oh no, no, go back. That was my song," or something like that. So it doesn't look like much, but it has, it's taken the edge off to a few callers that might have been waiting on a solution or waiting for me to come back to the line with some good or bad news, and it kind of breaks the ice. Sorry about that, guys. So my battery on my phone went dead, and that's the wonderful thing about technology. You'll never know the real time that I had to put the phone on charge and move the files off the card and blah, blah, blah. So basically what we have on here, we have line 1 and line 2. And again, that goes into our 2 lines from our 1 line, which I know it sounds complicated, but this is basically how you make a nice business class phone out of pretty much stuff that would have normally been unusable. So a little bit of how it's set up. That ATA has 2 different SIP settings in it, and I have basically both of them programmed with the same number for Nicolet's computer. So if I go to line 1 and we'll go ahead and do speakerphone here, and I dial extension 101, that would be line 2, and you see line 2 is ringing. Now, because I pressed this pound, if you look down at that box down there, line 1 is already lit because I put it on hold. So if I go to line 2 now, there's line 2. So that's line 2, that's line 1. So what's going to happen when I connect back to line 2, let's go back to line 1, 101, pound, answer it. So that's what the caller would hear from line 1. Megan Trainer, no. So I can see what's going through. So basically it goes like this. Even though line 1, I'm on line 2 now, they can't hear what I'm saying. It's almost like the phone's hung up pretty much. But that box is taken over. Now, even though I'm on line 2 now, I can say, okay, let's say there was no music playing. I can go, okay, hold on. I hit this button here. That puts line 2 on hold. So now when I go back to line 1, I should probably have like a double loop of music because, yeah, I just hung up on them. But you get the idea. Are you still there? No, this speakerphone's really weird. But if I would have picked it up, it would have automatically. So now I have no calls on hold. If I go from line 2 and dial extension 100, then it should ring on line 1. Wait. So I could say, hello, whatever. Line 2 is on hold. If you look, it is actually on hold. So it gives me the option. There is a hold button, but all that does is basically makes it silent. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll go ahead and say, hello, Nicolet's Computers, this is Ken. Okay, give me 1 second. This. That'll put it on hold, and then when I come back, I just hit this and answer it, and that's how that works. So it's nothing too expensive, but there I can come back, see my caller ID, and I can still see that there's somebody waiting on line 2, so I click that, and I can exit that call and completely end that call. So, it's not much. It is basically a way to take something simple as an old ATA, unlock it, program a SIP provider in there, do a little bit of wiring to a little old-fashioned analog interface box that basically puts music on hold, and you could loop this to an MP3 player or anything that you want, and people will just think you have the best business class telephone when you put them on hold. And based on if I got a lot of people calling that are technical You know, I could go more of like a hits channel, or I could change it up a little bit and do some classical or jazz, or you know, anything that's just not elevator music, just to switch it up a little bit. But I could even do elevator music. I mean, I believe there's a channel on there for that. So, you know, this is just some food for thought. Those of you who think the analog phone stuff is dead, ATAs kind of bring this older equipment like this back to life. And I'll tell you what, I use this phone every day. I have it tied into Ring Central, those of you who know what that is, so I'm able to get my business clients when I'm at home. I have my desk. I have multiple trunks on each line, so if I'm on a call on line 1 and somebody else calls, it can go to line 2. If I don't answer line 2, it'll go to a third trunk, and then if that trunk don't answer, then it'll go to voicemail. And, you know, it still gets complicated, but the end result is a cheap business class phone, and the people on the other end would never know the difference. When you call, it still, you know, still comes up with the call attendant. You've reached Nicola's Computers. Press 1 for this, 2 for that, 0 for voicemail, or and then when you press the option, it'll say something along the lines of "Please hold while we route your call." So, you know, on the other end of the call, you would never know it's analog equipment wired up like this. And like I said, once I tape it, solder it, shrink tube it, put it all in you know, on the desk where it goes, mount this, you know, have these nicely loomed. Um, It'll work a lot better. Now I know a lot of you are probably thinking about the earlier part of my video where I said that there's not a lot of voltage in the line, and you're probably thinking about seeing me get knocked on my butt, you know, sticking my tongue in it. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you real quick. I mean, it's really not. I don't recommend kiddies you try this at home, but we'll go ahead and it's just a little zap. See, so we'll do it again. You know, you might just see my eyeballs jump a little. Ready? Okay, enough. So I'm not dead. I'm still talking to you guys. It's enough current, like a 9-volt battery, to kind of make your tongue a little numb, but it won't kill you. Worst case scenario, if these did touch together, it could damage the ATA. But I have a bunch of them laying around that I could just program another one and be back up, or just say, you know, it's 2016. Do away with the ATA and just buy a nice SIP phone and program the information. So this is just, you know, for some of you people out there who are just starting a business, and you know the only thing you have right now is your cell phone, and you kind of want a desk phone, but you don't want to go out and spend $100, $200 this phone and say, it's nothing more than a old analog telephone. What good is that? And nowadays you can buy, you know, nice Skype video, but the difference is this concoction of cables and wires and whatnot, which doesn't look like much sitting here. When you call me, you would never know that it's going through all this homebrew to connect that call. And I mean, it really works good. It is very stable. And I have the ability to go in there and change my codec. So if I decide I want to do a fax on it or something, I can change it. The firmware is completely unlocked, so I have full control over that ATA. Which is getting onto a whole nother subject, but I just figured I would just do a small video on how to take some older technology, kind of mix it in with the newer technology, and just add a spin to it with the modem on hold. You know, I mean, it's just a very stable, robust setup that does the job every day. It does it well, and I figured I'd make a quick video. The box is a Scotch SKUTCH VA704-2. I'm not affiliated with that company by any means. I don't even know much about them other than the fact that I had to Google several web pages to get the PDF just to figure out how to do the programming. So if you have one and you know a little bit more about the programming, do share your information at the bottom of this link. I do know there's like ### 1 through 9 that does various options like auto mute and some other stuff. But for the most part, I didn't like it on this key here, the star key, because I use that to access my voicemail. So when I pick it up on the star and then put my code in, and it was just problematic. So I reprogrammed it to this key. So when I'm on a call, I just hit that. They never know the difference at the other end. So this was Ken from Nicola's Computer, and I hope you found this video informative. You guys have a great afternoon.